So, picture this. You walk into your neighborhood grocery store, just heading down the aisle to grab your favorite box of cereal.
Right.
And when you get to the register, it rings up, I don't know, 50 cents higher than it did last month.
Which is always a great feeling.
Oh, yeah, the best. And your immediate reaction is probably just to sigh and blame inflation.
Right.
Or maybe you assume the store owner is just getting a little greedy.
Yeah, that's the natural assumption.
It feels like a simple, totally isolated transaction. Just you, the cashier, and a slightly higher grocery bill.
It really does feel that way.
Mhm.
We just naturally assume local prices are driven entirely by, local factors.
Right.
But, and this is what's so wild behind that single box of cereal and that specific 50-cent price hike,
Yeah.
is this incredibly intricate, largely invisible web of supply chain mechanics. And what's fascinating is that when some corporate logistics planner, sitting at a desk hundreds of miles away, decides to change one tiny rule about how trucks are routed, it can trigger this domino effect that literally reshapes the entire economic reality of your neighborhood.
Which is exactly what we are unraveling today. Welcome to the deep dive. We're digging into this really recent, pretty intense economic analysis of urban grocery markets.
Yeah, it's from an EconWorks post back in March. The economics of distribution withdrawal. It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, and it's a very dense, highly technical, math-heavy economic model. But our mission today is to translate that into the real-world story of the grocery stores right down your street.
Exactly.
Because this research exposes how a seemingly boring, totally behind-the-scenes delivery change can quietly inflate the prices you pay, and even worse, force your local businesses to close their doors entirely.
It's a huge deal.
Okay, let's unpack this. The analysis looks at a vertically structured market.
All right, so to really understand what's happening to that box of cereal, we have to look at the whole food ecosystem. At the top of the chain, you have a single massive upstream manufacturer.
Like the giant multinational companies making branded packaged foods.
Exactly, the big conglomerates. And then downstream from them, you have the localized geographical neighborhoods where people actually live and do their shopping.
And in those neighborhoods, the research divides the grocery stores into two distinctly different camps. Let's give them names to make this a bit easier to track.
Good idea.
On one side, we have the major chain supermarkets. We can call them megamart. These are the massive corporate multi-location behemoths.
Right, the big box stores.
And on the other side, we have the independent supermarkets. Let's call them corner grocery. Smaller, locally owned, maybe just a single location.
And that distinction between megamart and corner grocery is basically the engine driving this entire phenomenon.
How so?
Well, because while they might sell the exact same box of cereal, they operate in completely different logistical realities. But before we get to why prices go up, we have to understand the baseline.
The starting point.
Right. Like, how does the cereal physically get from the factory to the shelves of both megamart and corner grocery in the first place?
Okay, so originally, according to the source, the playing field is completely level because of this system called direct store delivery, or DSD.
Yeah, direct store delivery. And it is exactly what it sounds like. The upstream manufacturer manages the entire delivery process themselves.
So they just drive it right there.
Exactly. Their branded trucks pull up to the giant loading dock at Megamart, and that exact same fleet of trucks pulls up to the little alleyway behind corner grocery.
So the cost to get the product onto the shelf is really straightforward then.
Very. It's basically the wholesale price, which economists in the paper call W plus the manufacturer's standard distribution cost, which they call D.
So W plus D, both stores pay the exact same rate.
Precisely. From a marginal cost perspective, they are identical. They're on equal footing.
Right.
But, economic models exist to explore what happens when the status quo shatters.
Of course they do.
So the research asks us to look at a very specific real-world scenario. What happens when the manufacturer suddenly decides they don't want to deliver to the little guys anymore?
Wait, they just cut them off completely.
They withdraw DSD services for the independent retailers, yeah. But, and this is the crucial part, they keep providing direct delivery to the massive chain stores.
Or I guess the chain stores are so large, they just have their own fleets to do it anyway.
Exactly. They replicate it.
Hold on, though. Why would a manufacturer do that? Just to be cruel to small businesses?
No, it's purely about efficiency and scale. I mean, think about it. It is way cheaper and faster for a giant food conglomerate to drop off 50 pallets of cereal at one single megamart distribution center
Right.
than it is to send Dozens of, half-empty trucks navigating through narrow city streets to service 50 different little corner groceries.
Okay, yeah. From the manufacturer's perspective, dropping the independence probably saves a fortune in
A
logistics.
massive amount.
Okay, I see the corporate logic, but
Yeah.
this creates what the research calls an asymmetric cost shock.
Yes.
Because the shock doesn't hit the whole market, it only hits corner grocery.
Exactly.
Megamart still gets their smooth, direct delivery, but corner grocery is suddenly stranded. They still need to sell the cereal, so they are forced to go through wholesale intermediaries.
You have to hire a middleman.
Right. And introducing a middleman fundamentally alters the math for the independent store. The research notes this by introducing a new cost variable, right?
Yeah, they use the Greek letter mu. Basically, it represents the middleman markup and all the logistical inefficiencies. So now the independence cost isn't just W plus D, it's W plus D plus mu.
Let's visualize this because it's not just a letter and a formula. It's a real physical headache for the store owner.
Absolutely.
It's, okay, before, corner grocery got a direct flight for their inventory, point A to point B.
Right.
Now, the manufacturer dumps the cereal at some massive third-party regional warehouse. That's a layover.
I like that analogy.
Then, a separate wholesale company has to load it onto their own truck, drive it into the city, and deliver it.
Yeah.
Corner grocery is paying for the extra fuel, the warehouse space, the profit margin of that middleman. They are essentially forced to pay a massive baggage fee just to get the exact same box of cereal they used to get directly. That mu is the baggage fee.
That forced layover penalty is the perfect way to look at it. Megamart's cost stays totally flat. Corner groceries cost spikes because of that middleman markup.
Wow.
And the most insidious part of this whole shift is that it is completely invisible to you, the consumer.
Yeah, I have no idea that's happening.
Right. You don't see the logistics contracts being rewritten. You don't see that the truck parked out back has a different logo on it now. You only see the end result.
Which means we need to talk about how this invisible layover penalty forces corner grocery to change the price tag on the shelf.
We do.
Because obviously, if a small business is suddenly bleeding money on shipping costs, they only really have one lever left to pull to avoid going bankrupt.
Exactly. They have to raise their prices.
Yeah. But to understand how that single price hike echoes across the whole neighborhood, we have to look at the specific way these stores compete with each other.
Right. The research models this as something called differentiated Bertrand price competition.
Okay, differentiated price competition. Break that down for me because on the surface, a box of cereal at Megamart is identical to a box of cereal at corner grocery. It's the same physical box.
The physical item is identical, yes.
Yeah.
But the experience of acquiring it is not.
What do you mean?
Well, you aren't just buying cereal. You are buying the location, the convenience, the store layout, the parking situation.
Okay. So because the stores offer different environments, they aren't forced to match each other to the exact penny.
Exactly. The economic model includes what it calls random variations in consumer preference.
Like what?
Well, think about your own habits. Let's say it's raining and corner grocery is only a block away. Well, Megamart requires a 20-minute drive across town.
Oh, I'm definitely walking a block.
Right. You might be perfectly willing to pay an extra 50 cents at corner grocery just to avoid getting in your car and sitting in traffic.
For sure.
So because the stores offer slightly different overall packages of convenience and, vibe, they have some wiggle room to set their prices based on their costs without instantly losing every single customer to the competitor.
Got it. Okay, so corner groceries cost just spiked because of the middleman markup. They look at their profit margins, realize they are in the red, and they use that wiggle room.
Yep.
They bump up the price of the cereal by, let's say, 60 cents to cover the new shipping fees. It hurts the shopper, but from a survival standpoint, it makes total sense.
It does. It's their best response.
Mm-hmm.
But the research reveals a fascinating secondary effect here. It looks at how Megamart responds to corner groceries' distress.
Okay.
And the math shows a direct positive correlation. The formula basically says when the independent store's costs go up, the chain store's price also goes up.
Wait, let me stop you right there.
I know, it sounds crazy.
Megamart's cost did not change at all. We just established that. They still have their direct, hyper-efficient delivery system. They do not pay the mu tax.
Right.
Why on earth are they charging you, the consumer, more?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to a cynical yet entirely rational reduction in competitive pressure.
Cynical is the right word.
Megamart's pricing algorithm is constantly monitoring the local market, right? Before the logistics change, Mega Mart had to keep their prices relatively low because Corner Grocery was right there offering the same products at competitive rates.
They were basically keeping each other honest.
Precisely. But the moment Corner Grocery is forced to raise their prices just to survive that middleman penalty, the gap between the two stores widens significantly.
Oh.
Suddenly, Mega Mart looks incredibly cheap by comparison.
Mega Mart realizes they have breathing room.
Exactly. They realize they are leaving money on the table. They don't have to keep their prices rock bottom to win your business anymore.
Wow.
If Corner Grocery raised their price by 60 cents, Mega Mart can just quietly raise their own price by 30 or 40 cents.
Just to pad the margins?
Exactly. They dramatically boost their own profit margins, they pad their bottom line, and to the average consumer, they still look like the cheaper option compared to the struggling independent store down the street.
That is infuriating. I mean, the manufacturer makes a logistical change that penalizes the small local business.
Yeah.
And the giant corporate chain uses that penalty as an excuse to quietly gouge the consumer. So you and I are paying more at the register no matter which store we go to, just because a truck changed its route.
It is a textbook response when competitive pressure drops.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, the consumer is the one absorbing the cost of a supply chain shift they don't even know happened.
Okay, so this dynamic is a direct hit to our wallets, but the research goes much further than just explaining why prices fluctuate, right?
It does.
Because the paper actually looks at the ultimate endgame for Corner Grocery, and it is a lot darker than just losing a few customers. We need to talk about survival.
Right. The model moves from analyzing price adjustments to looking at the fundamental profit equation of a retail business.
Break that down for us.
Profit is essentially your margin, which is the price you charge minus your cost, multiplied by the volume of items you sell.
Makes sense.
And then, from that total, you have to subtract your fixed operating costs.
Right, and the fixed costs are the killer. Rent for the building, the massive electricity bill for the commercial freezers, property taxes.
Exactly.
Those bills are exactly the same whether you sell 10 boxes of cereal or 10,000.
Exactly. And the stark reality of any market is that if your profit dips below zero, if you can no longer cover those fixed costs, you are forced to exit the market. You shut down.
Man.
The research traces a direct mathematical line between that middleman markup, that moo, and the probability of a local store going completely bankrupt.
Let's follow that line because they are basically getting squeezed from both directions now, aren't they?
They really are. On one side, their marginal costs are higher because of the layover penalty, which shrinks the profit they make on every single item.
Right.
On the other side, because they had to raise their prices on the shelf, fewer people are shopping there, which shrinks their total sales volume.
So a smaller margin multiplied by a smaller volume
Means revenue plummets.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's just not enough to keep the lights on. The independent grocer vanishes from the neighborhood entirely.
Which brings us to the real so what of this entire deep dive.
Yeah.
If Corner Grocery closes, does it really matter to the overall economy? Obviously, it's tragic for the business owner. I'm not discounting that.
Right.
But for the listener who is just trying to buy groceries, if Mega Mart is still open, what does this all mean for them? What's the actual damage?
Well, economists measure that damage through something called welfare analysis. They specifically look at consumer surpluses.
Consumer surplus.
Think of it as a measurement of how much value or benefit you get out of a market. When consumer surplus drops, your quality of life, economically speaking, just gets worse.
And how badly does this logistics shift damage consumer surplus in the model?
The research shows it declines significantly, and it happens in two distinct stages.
Okay, what's stage one?
The first stage we already covered. Prices are now permanently strictly higher at both stores. You're paying more out of pocket for the exact same goods, which instantly reduces the value you get from the market.
Right. Corner Grocery passed on the shipping fees, and Mega Mart opportunistically raised prices because they could. A double tax on the neighborhood.
Exactly.
So what is the second stage of the decline?
The second stage happens when Corner Grocery actually closes its doors. The economic model proves that a reduction in the sheer number of independent retailers inherently destroys value.
Because it eliminates choice.
Exactly. It eliminates product variety and consumer choice.
But wait, if Mega Mart has thousands of items and it's this massive superstore, how am I really losing variety?
Well, it's not just about the specific brands on the shelf. It goes back to those random variations in consumer preference we discussed earlier.
Walking in the rain, example.
Right. Consumers place immense value on having options. Maybe Corner Grocery carried a specific local brand of bread that Megamart just refuses to stock.
Oh, I see.
Or maybe Corner Grocery was a 5-minute walk for an elderly resident who can't easily drive to the massive chain store out on the highway.
Or maybe you just hate navigating the massive parking lot at Megamart when all you need is a carton of milk.
Exactly. When the independent store is forced into bankruptcy, your available choice set shrinks. You are funneled into a one-size-fits-all corporate environment.
Wow.
The research concludes that this loss of convenience, local flavor, and alternative options drastically lowers overall consumer well-being. You basically end up paying more money for fewer choices in a less vibrant neighborhood.
It's a really bleak picture, a neighborhood just hollowed out, leaving only a massive chain store that charges inflated prices because there's no local competition left to stop them.
It is bleak.
But I have to push back here for a second. The economists love building elegant models. They love their formulas and their Greek letters. But models are just theories on a whiteboard, you know?
Very true.
The real world is incredibly chaotic. How do researchers actually prove that this invisible logistics shift is causing these closures and price hikes? Maybe it's just general economic bad luck.
That is the most critical hurdle in any economic research. You can't just claim a theory is true. You have to isolate the phenomenon in real-world data.
So how do they do it?
To do that, the researchers use a classic empirical technique called difference in differences.
Okay, I've heard that term, but walk me through how it actually works in practice. Because I look at grocery prices over the last few years. Everything went up.
Right.
Gas prices spiked, there were shortages, general inflation hit everyone. How do you possibly filter out all that noise to prove that a delivery change caused the price hike?
Okay, let's visualize how difference in differences works using a scenario. Imagine we are looking at two very similar towns right next to each other, Town A and Town B. And both towns have an independent corner grocery.
Got it. 2 towns, 2 independent stores.
Now, we track the price of a specific item, let's say a gallon of milk, at both stores over 2 years. For the first year, we just watch the price lines on a graph.
Sure.
If general inflation hits, the price of milk in Town A goes up by 10 cents, and the price in Town B goes up by 10 cents. Their lines on the graph move together in parallel.
Because they are experiencing the exact same macroeconomic forces. The gas spikes and wheat shortages hit them equally.
Exactly. This establishes what economists call the parallel trends assumption.
Okay, so they're moving in tandem.
It proves that these two stores behave similarly under normal conditions. Now, in year 2, the manufacturer implements their new policy, but they only apply it to Town A.
Ah.
Town A loses its direct delivery and has to use a middleman. Town B is allowed to keep its direct delivery.
So Town B becomes the control group.
Precisely. We keep watching the lines on the graph. Inflation is still happening, so Town B's line keeps steadily creeping up. But suddenly, Town A's line violently breaks away.
Because of the middleman markup?
Yes, it shoots up much faster and higher than Town B's line.
Okay.
And by comparing the difference in Town A's price change to the difference in Town B's price change, differences economists mathematically strip away the noise of general inflation.
That is brilliant.
The gap that opens up between those two lines is the pure, isolated, quantifiable effect of the delivery withdrawal. It is hard proof that the policy is causing the pain.
It completely isolates the variable. But wait, that proves the middleman penalty exists for the independent store?
Right.
How do they prove the second, more cynical part of the theory? How do they use data to prove that Megamart gets greedy and raises its prices just because competition dropped?
They use a really clever metric to measure that indirect effect. They look at the chain stores and calculate something they call exposure.
Exposure to what?
Exposure to struggling independent stores.
Oh.
They look at the map and identify a Megamart located in a neighborhood surrounded by 3 or 4 independent grocers who all just lost their direct delivery.
So that Megamart has high exposure to the policy change.
Exactly, because all of its immediate competitors are suddenly paying the middleman markup and raising their prices.
Right.
Then they compare that specific Megamart to another Megamart in a different neighborhood that doesn't have any independent competitors nearby.
Okay.
That second store has 0 exposure. And the data shows that the high exposure Megamart raises its prices significantly more than the 0 exposure Megamart.
Wow. That is the smoking gun.
It really is.
The chain store, surrounded by struggling small businesses, aggressively hikes its prices, while the identical chain store a few towns over keeps its prices totally flat.
Yep.
That definitively proves they aren't raising prices because their own costs went up. They are raising prices purely because they know the local independent guys are too weak to fight back.
It is a phenomenal use of empirical data to validate a theoretical model. It proves that the reduction in competitive pressure directly leads to corporate price inflation at the local level.
Unbelievable. And there we have it. We've taken a journey from a dry mathematical appendix on distribution withdrawal all the way to the very real reality of your local neighborhood.
It's quite a journey.
It is. To summarize what we've uncovered, when a distant manufacturer decides to streamline their supply chain by cutting off direct delivery to independent retailers, they create an invisible asymmetric cost shock.
Right. That shock forces small local businesses to pay a heavy middleman penalty, forcing them to raise their prices just to survive.
Which then triggers a cynical reaction from the massive corporate chains who realize they can quietly inflate their own prices and pad their profits because the local competition has been crippled.
Exactly.
And ultimately, this cascade of hidden logistics and algorithmic pricing leads to independent stores going bankrupt, leaving you, the consumer, paying higher prices in a neighborhood completely stripped of its variety and local character.
It really pulls back the curtain on how sensitive local ecosystems are to upstream corporate decisions.
It does, and it completely changes how you look at the physical landscape of your city. Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive.
Lay it on us.
We like to think that our local economies, the stores that line our streets, are shaped by local community demand. We think that if a store provides good service and people like it, it will survive.
Right, the free market at the local level.
But this research proves how much absolute power upstream manufacturers hold over our reality. If a spreadsheet decision made in a corporate boardroom hundreds of miles away can dictate which local businesses live or die, and ultimately what you pay for basic groceries.
Yeah.
Are our communities really in control of their own local economies? Or are we entirely at the mercy of invisible supply chain algorithms optimizing for corporate efficiency? Something to think about the next time you walk down your local grocery aisle.